Speaking of illegal immigration and the border, Congressman Michael Guest is on with us. He represents District 3 in the state of Mississippi in U.S. Congress, and he's on with us now. Congressman Guest, welcome to the program.
Yeah, thanks for having me back again. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've been talking about the reconciliation bill, which is basically the upcoming tax bill that President Trump's been talking about, where the tax cuts from 2017 are hoping to be extended or made permanent in the tax code. But there's also other subject matters that are talking about being included in this legislation. So bring us up to date on what President Trump has called the One Big Beautiful Bill. Give us an update on some of the items that Republicans are looking to include in this legislation.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it is a bill that is multifaceted. You've got the tax relief, the extension of the Trump tax cuts, which is really the primary focus. But in addition to that, we've got a border focus where we just marked up last week in the Homeland Security Committee where we are going to invest an additional $69 billion to secure the border. Much of that money is going to wall border construction as well as new facility construction along the southwest border. But there's some additional funds going for personnel, investing in technology. We're going ahead and making an early investment to make sure we are prepared for the 2026 FIFA World Cup games that are going to be played, many of those being played in the United States. So we're looking ahead to the 2028 Olympics, and so we're going ahead. We're making down payments on those large sporting events that are going to be bringing in hundreds of thousands of people into the United States. And so we were able to mark up our portion of the bill last week. Mark Green and staff wrote a very tight piece of legislation, again, coming in under budget. We were actually allocated to spend up to $90 billion. We spent just over $69 billion, so $20 billion under budget, which I think is amazing. And this is going to go a long way to helping President Trump continue the great work that we've seen on the southwest border. I mean, we've seen border immigration numbers drop by 95%. I mean, we've basically cut off the spigot of new immigrants coming into the country. And so this legislation will help make sure that that is permanent and then will allow us to reallocate resources into the interior to begin apprehending some of those individuals who are in the country illegally who need to be deported back to their country of origin.
Let me ask you, before we get into kind of a timeline and maybe the implications on the economy, because a lot of the market is looking forward to this reconciliation bill because of the tax code updates or the renewal of the Trump tax cuts. But before we get into that, the DOJ has been finding billions of dollars that is either wasteful spending, fraudulent spending, somewhere in between. And a lot of the cabinet members and agencies have been cooperating with DOJ to save money where money can be saved. But is there a plan to include some permanency to the DOJ savings in this reconciliation bill? Because that's concern. There's a lot of concern out there from people who've been doing this a while that think, well, if it's one thing for DOJ to save money now, but if you get a different president in there, they'll just go back to the old way of doing things without Congress weighing in here. So is there any plan to include some more permanent fixes to the stuff that DOJ has found in this legislation?
Yeah, the intent of leadership is not to necessarily include that in the reconciliation package, but to see a package that is recommended by the White House known as rescissions. And so there is a mechanism where after Congress appropriates dollars to certain programs, if the executive branch then comes back to Congress and tells Congress that that money is no longer needed, then we can, by simple majority vote, so it would only require 50 votes in the Senate, we can claw that money back that was previously appropriated or funded for those agencies.
That's all
I
right.
know we were talking about kind of the rescissions package and that kind of being the vehicle in which we are looking at making some of these DOGE cuts permanent. And I do think that we will see a rescissions package once the reconciliation package gets complete sometime, I guess probably between now and, I think more realistic timeline is the timeline set forth by Chairman Jason Smith. He talks about July 4th as being a reasonable date for us to get that bill out of the House, out of the Senate, and to the President's desk. And I think once we do that, then the permanency of some of these DOGE cuts through the rescission, I think that will become a priority of leadership.
Let me ask you this on that, and then we'll move on. But with that rescission provision, there is a time window, if you will. Like, that's not on the table forever, right? So is it like 12 months that you guys basically have to act on that? Do you know what that timeline is?
I think it's going to be within this budget year, so that would put us into the fall.
Okay, into September.
I think as long as we do that within the FY25 time frame, which would be the end of September, and so we would still be well within our time frame to be able to get that accomplished between now and that time. And look, that's something that is much needed. It's something that myself and a lot of others members have really been talking about, because you're exactly right. Just because this president turns off the spending, we don't want to allow another president to come in 3 years from now and be able to turn that spending back on. And the only way to accomplish that is going to be through the rescissions package.
Yeah. I think between the renewing the tax cuts, maybe expanding it a little bit. On that, let me ask you this. We got about 2 minutes left. Do you think the tax cuts are going to be expanded to touch on tips and Social Security? I know that's something the president has talked about.
We're going to have to look and make sure that if we expand it past what we're looking at doing now, which is going to be either the extension, the permanency of the Trump tax cuts to 1.0, we're going to have to make sure we can pay for that. And that's something that we've been very clear about, is we don't want to continue to add to the national debt. And so if we can keep spending under control, if we can keep things that would be big item packages, if we can keep those down, I think you can look at expanding those. But we want to make sure that we're not adding to this growing national debt that we have seen explode. I mean, just this year alone, the service of the national debt is going to hit more than $1 trillion. And so we're spending more money now servicing the national debt than we are funding our military. And that's something that has to change. And so I think we want to get as much as we can in this bill. We want to make sure that we make the tax cuts as broad and as permanent as possible. But we also want to do so in such a manner that we're being good stewards of the taxpayer money, and we're not leaving trillions and tens of trillions of dollars in additional new debt to our children and our children's children.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. Michael Guest, Congressman from Mississippi, representing the Congressional District 3. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Appreciate your work.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you so much. That's Congressman Michael Guest from the state of Mississippi, talking about the reconciliation bill coming up, being negotiated and dealt with in the House now to go over to the Senate, to where the two chambers will work together to get that final package done. But